Hello, this is Sarah Wozniak. It is the 19th of August and we're doing the fetal pig dissection, reproductive system, and anatomy of the urinary system. So we're going to be cutting, we're doing the urinary system, not reproduction. So we are doing the incision this way, so that we can locate some of the pieces, some of the organs that we're looking for. So we're going to be looking for the kidneys, the ureters, the urinary bladder, renal artery, renal vein, renal cortex, and renal medulla. It's a little bit hard to get in here. This pig's a little bit older than it was when we first got it, so the skin's a little bit tougher. We're just disconnecting some of the connective tissues here, the umbilical cord. We'll get this piece of tissue out of the way. The umbilical cord is tied in here. We're just going to sever that so we can get this tissue out of the way. Okay, so I do believe that my pig was a male. And this is actually part of the urethra. Looks like perhaps this is part of the urethra. We're gonna look down here. These are all intestines. I'm gonna move the intestines out of the way so we can try to locate the kidneys. Let's see, all these intestines are here. Okay, so I'm gonna just remove the intestines as a whole and attempt to find these are intestines here. So they're pretty long. You can see they go all the way through. The large intestine is here, small intestine is there. Okay. And then down here we see, I'm gonna remove some of the connective tissue so we can show the kidneys. Hopefully you can get a good view. This here is one kidney, and this other side here is another kidney. I do apologize for the camera angle. I don't have my cameraman with me today, so I am working alone. Okay, so we're showing, let me see if I can show this a little bit better like this. Okay, so this is one kidney here. I'm using my finger to kind of loosen some of that epithelial tissue that's underneath there and show the kidney individually. Frederick, somebody's knocking on the garage door.
It sounds like kids.
Well, I'm in the middle of a video. Okay, sorry about that, guys.
Who's banging on the door?
Okay, this is one kidney here. This is another kidney here. So these kidneys are a lot different than the sheep kidney because they are a lot smaller. Okay, so you can see there that some of that dye when we're pushing down. That's gonna be the renal artery. This is the renal artery here. I'm sticking my instrument in the renal artery. And then on the other side, you can see some of the blue dye. I'll rip it open so we can get some of that out. There's the blue dye, and that is the renal vein. I'm gonna use my scissors to cut some of this connective tissue so we can look for. And this here, I believe, is the bladder. It's obviously empty now, but it's just like a sac. And it's connected to the kidneys. The kidneys filter out all of the stuff, and then it sends it to the bladder. Oh, this is part of the large intestine, so we just got some feces out of there. So this large intestines would have connected to this point right here through the small intestines. And as we've learned before, the small intestines are all of the absorption. This is where all the nutrients gets absorbed, goes to the large intestines, and then out the rectum. Let's see. This is the tube for the bladder. You can still see there's some fluid in there. When we try to extract some of the extra fluid, it comes out through here. So this would be the urethra. I'm trying to get some of this tissue out of the way so we can see the actual connection from the kidneys through to the urethra. There was a little bit of a problem. Here's the urethra right here. When we removed some of the other parts, it looks like we may have removed part of the urethra since our pig was a male. So we did the kidneys. This is the ureter here. The urinary bladders here. Renal artery, renal vein, renal cortex, and renal medulla. So we will need to remove one of these kidneys to look at the renal medulla, because that is located inside. So here's the kidney. We're gonna do a incision here so we can open that up. It's a lot harder than the sheep. The sheep was a lot bigger and easier to handle. I think this is just smaller because, harder because it's smaller. So here we have the renal medulla. This is more connective tissue. We can take that off of there. You see it just peels right off, and this is the outside of the kidney. The renal cortex and the renal medulla here. Okay, we'll go ahead and remove the other side just for fun. Here we see where it's connected. It's right behind there. And you can see this goes all the way up to the heart, which would in turn, it would turn into the, see this dye? This is from the artery. And then the blue dye is from the vein. Here is the ureter. I just pulled it out. It runs parallel to the artery, and the ureter takes the fluid from the kidneys up to the bladder. And we just took that out as well. So again, same thing. This is the kidney, the ureter that goes to the bladder, and this is the dye from the renal artery and renal vein. Here's the blue dye from the renal vein. And it goes all the way up into the bladder. This that I have here in my hand is the liver, one of the bigger organs in the body. Okay. So I think we named all of the, oh, there was some fat located around the kidney. It came off when we removed. This pig didn't have a lot of fat around the kidney, but it did come out when we removed his kidney and the connective tissue. There was some fat around it. Not much fat in these guys because they're little and they mostly live off of milk and grass. Here's the part of the ureter to the bladder, from the bladder. Okay. And my name is Sarah Wozniak, and this has been the urinary system dissection.